This is World Comics Review, and it's time for just a quick one. So I haven't seen anyone else in our community mention this so far, so I guess it falls to my rushed and inadequate efforts. But on the 24th of September 2021, the world unfortunately lost Saito Takao, the creator of Golgo 13, which is the longest running manga and also the one with the most volumes, although the way that's quantified is kind of a bit weird, because Golgo 13 became the longest running manga when it reached 201 volumes, but Kochikame reached 200 volumes and then finished. But Kochikame started in 1976 and Golgo 13 started in 1968, so you'd think that was the longest running one, but for some reason they counted it by a number of volumes, and Kochikame was a weekly, whereas Golgo 13 was a monthly, so for some reason Kochikame was the longest until Golgo 13 overtook it a couple of years later. But yeah, Kochikame finished on 200 volumes and for its 40th birthday in 2016, but Golgo 13 continued, so this is actually number 213, although Golgo 13's publishing schedule is kind of a bit weird too. This is one of the main series volumes, but it's also unusually for tankobon, the kind of printed volumes that most people are familiar with. This is kind of cheaply made and square bound like a kombini, which is the format usually reserved for cheap old reprints. And also it has backup stories. So there's this extremely well drawn samurai ninja type story, which is got nothing to do with Saito Takao as far as I can tell, and there's another tiny backup story in the end. And also Naoki Urasawa, who does Manben, which is has an episode dedicated to Saito Takao. His first published work was in one of these Golgo 13 volumes as well. So yeah, although this backup story is seems to have nothing to do with Saito Takao, and I love this artwork. I'm going to find out who actually did this and buy this in its actual collections. Far more realistic than the usual manga fare. Anyway, although that had nothing to do with Saito Takao, apart from being published in kind of his own comic, he did a bunch of ninja and samurai stuff himself, and this one's pretty long running itself, reaching 113 volumes. So I believe one of his historical stories, at least one of them, is an adaptation of a famous novel, but he did several others too, and those also get kind of themed best of and other such kombini reprints as well. There was quite a big one in every 7-Eleven quite recently. Yep, this is his samurai work, also recognisable style, but no guns this time. This guy's eyebrows. This could be an ancestor of Golgo 13. Don't know if the character is supposed to be Japanese. Apparently his real name is Duke Togo, but that might not be his real name. And they always say his nationality is unknown. And yeah, apparently Saito Takao was always worried that Golgo 13 was going to be cancelled at some point, so apparently he did script a final chapter, but yep, that never got drawn, or at least not by him. And there's also a regular series of themed Golgo 13 collections, reprinting older stories in things based on what's been in the news. So here we have the President of America, which was released around I think the 2016 US election, with old stories on a theme of American politics. And more recently there's a Innovation Literacy, which came out for Golgo 13's 50th anniversary, and this is about scientific progress and developments. So yeah, although Saito Takao has died, it was apparently his wish that the series was continued without him, so Shogakukan, who publish it, have announced that they're going to continue Golgo 13 with new artists and writers. And it was mentioned in the Manben episode that there was this rumour online that for years Saito Takao was only drawing the eyes of Golgo 13 and other artists were doing all of the other work, but actually he was drawing the characters and other artists were doing the complete backgrounds. But yeah, he was really old even in that episode. Like a lot of the people Naoki Urasawa met were like, oh, I grew up on your work, but when he met Saito Takao, he's like, oh, actually I grew up on your work. So yeah, that's Saito Takao unfortunately lost his battle with pancreatic cancer at the age of 84 on the 24th, And Golgo 13 was kind of important to me because one of the first ever anime that I watched where I knew what I was watching, unlike say Dog Tanyan and Jason the Wheeled Warriors, was Golgo 13 the Professional, which came out in 1982 or 83 I think, and was dubbed into English later in the 80s and can be obtained around the internet. In fact, there's often a version of it on YouTube you can watch, and it's kind of famous for its state of the art for the time, but now quite ropey CGI sequence with these helicopters flying towards a building. But yeah, it's a pretty good OVA of the 80s, and yeah, it was one of the first anime I ever watched. And I don't actually watch much anime, but I rewatched that quite recently and still enjoyed it. Most anime just bores me, to be honest. So that's my quite rushed and rather inadequate tribute video, but best I could do, I'm afraid. So yep, that's Saito Takao. Rest in peace.